Good evening. Come to this wonderful IAS 38 again. First, we'll take one small example to check whether you are studying at home or not. Solve. Question number check. Pluto Limited. Is it 16 number? Pluto Limited intends to open a new retail store in a location in the next few weeks. Pluto Limited has spent a substantial sum on a series of television advertisement to promote this new store. The company has paid an amount of rupees 8 lakh for advertisement before 31st March 20x1. Rupees 7 lakh of this sum relates to advertisement shown before 31st March 20x1 and rupees 1 lakh to advertisement shown in April 2000x1. Since 31st March 2000x1, the company has paid for further advertisement costing rupees 4 lakh. Pluto Limited is of the view that cost can be carried forward as intangible asset. Since market research indicates that this new store is likely to be highly successful. Please explain. Double underline please. And justify the treatment of the above cost in the financial statement for the year ended 31st March 20x1. One student is saying advertisement cost should not be carried forward, okay, as intangible asset. But then what will you do with the accounting? 7 lakh of this sum relates to advertisement shown before 31st March. Total amount spent is 8 lakh. So out of 8 lakh, 7 lakh relates to this year. That is 31st March 20x1. So it will be recognized as expense, and on the reporting date 1 lakh will be treated as prepaid expense, and then again in the next year you have incurred 4 lakh rupees. So 7 lakh will be charged in this year, 1 lakh will be shown as prepaid expense on this date, and then next year this 4 lakh rupees which you have incurred will also be charged, and plus this 1 lakh rupees will also be transferred back to profit and loss account. Okay. So this is the answer. Nothing will be capitalized, nothing will be carried forward as deferred expenditure also. So how will the student write the answer? Come to your book. Under IAS 38, intangible asset can only be recognized if there are identifiable and have a cost which can be reliably measured. These criteria are very difficult to satisfy for internally developed intangibles. For these reasons, IAS 38 specifically prohibits recognizing advertisement expenditure as intangible asset. The issue of how successful the store is likely to be does not affect this prohibition. Therefore, such cost should be recognized as expense. However, the cost should be recognized on an accrual basis. Therefore, of the advertisement paid for before 31st March, 7 lakh will be recognized as expense as discussed by us, and 1 lakh will be treated as prepaid expense for the year ended 31st March 20x1. The 4 lakh rupees cost of the advertisement paid for since 31st March would be charged as expense for the year ended 31st March 2002 next year, and even this 1 lakh will be charged in the next year. Okay, try one more question. Just printed below that. Mercury Limited is preparing its account for the year ended 31st March 20x2 and is unsure about how to treat the following items. So there are three treatments. You have to answer one by one. Company completed a grand marketing and advertisement campaign costing rupees 4.8 lakh. The finance director had authorized this campaign on the basis that it would create rupees 8 lakh of profit over the next 3 years. Should it be capitalized or entire amount should be recognized as expense? Expense. Same reason given in the previous problem. You have to explain in detail in the exam depending upon the marks allocated. A new product was developed during the year. The expenditure totaled rupees 3 lakh, of which 1.5 lakh was incurred prior to 30th September 20x1, the date on which it became clear that the product was technically viable. So 1.5 lakh rupees will be charged to P&L account because till that time technical feasibility was not established. Out of 3 lakh, first you write off 1.5 lakh because this expenditure was incurred before the technical feasibility was demonstrated. Now remaining 1.5 lakh can be capitalized. The new product will be launched in next 4 months and its recoverable amount is estimated to be 1.4 lakh. So now in this case what will happen? You will also test it for impairment. If you test it for impairment, its recoverable amount is less than the book value. So impairment loss of 0.10 will be recognized. In your answer, point number 2, new product, you just need to add one more line. Answer point number 2, new product. Development expenditure appearing in balance sheet will be 1.5 lakh. The expenditure prior to the date on which the product becomes technically feasible is recognized in SOPL. Write one more line. Company will recognize impairment loss. Company will recognize impairment loss of rupees 0.10 lakhs. Company will recognize impairment loss of rupees 0.10 lakhs in bracket, that is 1.5 minus 1.4. 1.5 minus 1.4, bracket close. Now next question is, staff participated in a training program which cost the company rupees 5 lakh. Training organization has made a presentation to the directors of the company outlining that incremental profit to the business over the next 12 months would be rupees 7 lakh. Oh, so we should capitalize. It is generating future economic benefit. But control is not there. See the answer number 3. No asset will be recognized because there is no control of the company over the staff. And the staff leaves the benefits of training, whatever they may be, whenever he departs. Okay. Now come to next discussion. Subsequent measurement. We have discussed the initial recognition. Now subsequent measurement means once the asset has been recognized, at the end of the year, what are the choices you have for accounting purpose? So subsequent measurement of an intangible asset can be either by applying cost model or revaluation model. Like IAS 16, in case if you are adopting revaluation model, then all the assets of a class will be applied revaluation model. Okay. So within a particular class of intangible asset, all the assets should be accounted under the same accounting model. So if you have, suppose, let us say brand as an intangible asset, you have acquired brands from different parties. All brands will be accounted using cost model or all brands will be accounted using revaluation model. So question is why? So the standard gives the answer. The item within a class of intangible assets are revalued simultaneously so as to avoid selective revaluation of asset. So as to avoid selective revaluation of asset. Otherwise, company might revalue those assets which have gone up in value and may not revalue those assets which have gone down. And plus within a class it should not happen, some are cost, some are revaluation. Understanding of the financial statement may become difficult. What is cost model? Cost model like IAS 16, will not spend much time on this. IAS 16 and this standard is very similar. So next 5 minutes just go through it quickly. Take the cost which we discussed in the beginning, minus any accumulated amortization and minus any accumulated impairment loss. Same thing about the revaluation model also. Intangible assets shall be revalued at such frequency. That means you have to keep on revaluing it frequently, such that on the reporting date there shall not be any material difference between the carrying amount and the fair value as on that date. Does it remind you of IAS 16? Yes. The fair value is determined by reference to an active market. There is a definition of active market, but I have not read yesterday. It means a market with large number of buyers and sellers, homogeneous product, and prices are available to public. If you just look at it carefully, for most of the intangible asset, you may not have active market. Possible or not? Suppose you have a brand as intangible asset. Do we have an active market for brand, trademark, copyright, license? Depends. Do you get mining license on the market anywhere? Tell me. Which market? Telecom license? Broadcasting rights? Most of these do not have active market. There may be some, say, branded software which may have. Okay. In some country that there are few licenses for which there is a market. Okay, but that is very rare. But most of the items do not have a active market. Do you have market for patents, broadcasting right, telecasting right, IPL match right? No. So as an exception, if there is no active market at all, or if subsequently there is no active market, then the concerned intangible asset shall be carried at cost or previously recognized fair value. Okay. Suppose there was an active market when you followed the revaluation model. 1 year down the line that market does not exist. Then whatever was your previously revalued fair value, that will become the future carrying amount after considering accumulated depreciation or amortization or impairment loss. Now in this chapter you will find I have not gone into detail of revaluation model. By writing one line, you follow all the principles which we have discussed in IAS 16. Okay. Revaluation model can also be applied to a government grant which was initially recognized at nominal amount. That means first you may recognize nominal amount, but later on if you want you can revalue that intangible asset. Okay. For more detail about revaluation, refer IAS 16. Now come to amortization. Amortization refers to allocation of an amount to be charged off over the useful life of the intangible asset. Amortization is same like depreciation. Okay. It is the systematic allocation of the depreciable amount over the useful life of an asset. Depreciable amount is the cost minus residual value to be distributed over the useful life. What is the method of amortization they have suggested? Which method of amortization do you think they have suggested? They have said you choose that method of amortization which is based on the pattern in which future economic benefit are consumed. Okay. If that pattern cannot be determined reliably, then you can follow a straight line method. So let us say you got a franchisee right of McDonald, McD, and you have got this franchisee right for 5 years, and you think you will be able to generate revenue of $5 million, $6 million, $7 million, $8 million, $10 million. So what you can do, if you have paid say $10 million as a franchisee rights cost, you can apportion it in the ratio of future economic benefit, which of course you can revise also, which is called change in accounting estimate. But you know, you are a student, future is uncertain. Okay. In that case, it can be straight line method also over the useful life. We'll take a problem on that a little later. Just we'll first finish one or two more points. Next is what is residual value? Already discussed, amount expected to be realized at the end of the useful life of the asset. Now here we are talking about an intangible asset which does not have physical substance. So therefore the standard says the residual value should be taken as 0. But if suppose there is a commitment by a third party to purchase the intangible asset at the end of its useful life, then in that case you can take positive value. Like you are using some intangible, for example software. There is another entity who has committed to purchase that software after 3 years from you at a certain amount. In that case you can take the positive residual value, or it is probable that an active market exists and will exist at the end of the useful life also. So there must be an active market for this intangible asset now, and this must continue to exist at the end of the useful life also, with reference to which you can determine the residual value. Probability of satisfying second condition is very low. There are very few intangible assets which you can visualize for which you will have active market. Okay. Most of the intangible assets are specific, unique, and therefore you will not have an active market for that. So in that case you have to take 0. Subsequent increase of residual value for change in the price or value. So can we revise the residual value? The standard says yes. You should review it every year. Most welcome. So there are two possibilities. It may decrease or it may increase. Now if the residual value increases, possible, and it may increase above the assets carrying amount, will you provide amortization? No, carrying amount is 1 lakh. Residual value is 2 lakh. So applying the formula cost minus or carrying amount minus residual value, it becomes negative figure. Stop providing amortization charge. But once the residual value falls below the carrying amount, you will resume providing amortization expense. Next is useful life. Now this is again important, because intangible asset can have finite useful life or can have indefinite useful life. The standard says use the word indefinite because we don't know what can be the useful life. So ideally the correct word they have said is used indefinite instead of infinite. Okay, although in some books we write infinite also. Now next is the amortization should be based on the pattern in which future economic benefits are consumed. And if that pattern cannot be reliably measured, SLM, intangible asset having useful life, intangible asset having finite useful life will be amortized over that period. But what about intangible asset which do not have the finite life? How are you going to depreciate? Amortize. Any formula of amortization will require number of years in your formula, whether it is straight line method or WDV method. Okay, in that case you will only check it for impairment. You will not amortize it. And then the standard also says you must review the useful life at the end of each reporting period. Review. If required, revise the useful life. Revision of useful life will be treated as change in accounting estimate. Next paragraph is intangible asset that arises from contractual or other legal rights. Intangible asset that arises from contractual or other legal rights. An example, suppose you have a patent and the law of the country says patent rights will be given for 15 years. Then in that case, the useful life will not exceed the legal period. Or suppose you have obtained an asset under some contract. Let's say, for example, rights, mining rights. Okay. Then in that case, your useful life will not exceed that contractual period. Can I go beyond contractual or legal rights? Yes, if it is renewable. If it is renewable. Okay. The useful life of an intangible asset that arises from contractual or other legal rights shall not exceed the period of contractual or other legal rights, but may be shorter. May be shorter. Patent is given to me for 15 years, but I know this product is useful for only 10 years. I will take only 10 years, but may be shorter depending upon the period over which the entity expects to use the asset. Now understand this paragraph. You can take more than legal period or contractual period if it can be renewed. If the contractual or other legal rights are conveyed for a limited term that can be renewed, the useful life of intangible assets shall include the renewable period only if, underline only if, you will take that also, if there is evidence to support renewal by the entity without significant cost. That means it is reasonably certain that the entity is going to renew the contract or renew the legal rights without incurring the significant cost. What about intangible asset having indefinite useful life? Do not amortize it because you don't know the number of years. But compulsorily you have to test it for impairment annually. Every year. Even if there is no indication of impairment. Even if there is no indication of impairment, you have to test it for every year. Okay. And whenever there is an indication that the IA may be impaired, this is annual is must. But more than once is also possible in case if you get an indication that the intangible asset might be impaired. Now some question answer session will begin. Question number 10. Entity A purchased a patent right for rupees 60 lakh. It has been assessed that useful life is 10 years. Useful life is 10. However, another group company intends to buy the patent after 5 years for 60% of the purchase price. Entity also intends to sell it after 5 years. So in this case, how many years will I take for amortization purpose? 10 or 5? Just read these 2 lines and tell me. Another group entity intends to buy the patent from you after 5 years, and this entity wants to sell it after 5 years. So you are going to use it only for 5 years. And will you take residual value as 0 or 60% of this 60 lakh? So residual value will be 60%. Because there is a commitment by a third party to acquire the intangible asset. There exists active market for similar patents. The entity wishes to adopt revaluation model. Now, based on the information, there are 4 questions. At what cost the entity should recognize the patent initially? Any answer? Entity should recognize 60 lakh. If it adopts revaluation model, does it need to adopt an amortization policy also? Yes. Even if you follow revaluation model, you need to provide amortization. IAS 16 also says the same thing. If the answer to question number 2 is in affirmative, what should be the useful life of the asset? Useful life of the asset will be, for this entity, 5 years. Next question, what will be the amortization for year 1? What will be amortization for year 1? 60 lakh minus 60% residual value divided by 5 years. So the answer is 4.8 lakhs. Is it right? First answer is 60 lakh. Second is yes. Third is 5 year. And fourth is 4.8 lakhs. Okay, try this one also. Entity K has purchased copyright for a period of 30 years. However, future economic benefit test shows that copyright may generate cash flow for a period of only 15 years. What would be the useful life of the copyright? 15 or 30? 15, because you are going to use it for economic benefit purpose only for 15 years. So 15 year would be the answer. Okay, now you try this question. Next one. Entity has acquired broadcasting right for a period of 5 years, which is renewable with a nominal renewal fees. Now see, you have got a right for 5 years. You can renew it. And how much amount you have to pay? Nominal amount. If the entity maintains a standard broadcasting quality, earlier the entity got renewal and there is no report for inferior quality of broadcasting. That means they can keep on renewing whenever they want. So what should be the useful life of the asset in this case? 5 year or infinite? Indefinite. Indefinite, because after 5 years again you will renew. Again you will renew. And the renewal fees is nominal. Plus your standard broadcasting quality is maintained. So therefore the first answer will be indefinite. If after 2 years the licensing authority decides to auction the broadcasting right and no further renewal at nominal charges will be done, how should this evidence be reflected in the accounts? Now after 2 years what happened? The government policy has changed here. They are again going to auction this broadcasting right. And this time there is no nominal charge. Which means the renewable is not certain that you are going to certainly get the renewal. So in that case, the review of the useful life will be done and the entity will say we will take it 5 years only now. Because there is no certainty that you are going to get the renewal. So the answer you will write like this: broadcasting right has indefinite useful life. The initial acquisition price of the license is not amortized but tested for impairment. And second answer, the decision of the licensing authority has made the indefinite useful life of the intangible asset to finite useful life of 3 years. Okay, now 3 more years are remaining, 5 minus 2. The carrying amount of the broadcasting right will be amortized over 3 years. Now, dear students, solve this question number 13. An enterprise acquired a patent right for rupees 100 lakhs. The product life cycle has been initially estimated to be 5 years. Okay, and the estimated cash flow over the useful life of the patent is year 1 150, 2 150, 3 150, 400, 500. Initially a 5-year amortization period has been decided, and the amortization was decided in the ratio of the estimated future cash flow. Amortization is decided as follows. This is what they have done. They have assumed cash flow over next 5 years. In this ratio, they have amortized or made an amortization chart for intangible asset. But what happened after third year? So 3 years are over. It was ascertained that patent will continue to maintain the market share for another 6 years. Oh, 6 more years are there now. 3 years are over. So some amount I have already amortized, 23.08 into 3 times. This much amount I have already amortized, 69.24. Balance amount will be now amortized over 6-year period. But the estimated cash flow after 5th year is expected to be rupees 75 lakh. So now my cash flow pattern will be coming 2 years, next 2 year 100, and thereafter 75 4 times. Thereafter 75 4 times. Is it right? So in that ratio, the remaining carrying amount will be amortized. So dear student, write down. I have kept some work for you. The total amount to be amortized over 3 years is 23.08 into 3. Write the figure there. 69.24 equal to 69.24. And then write down balance amount to be amortized. 100 minus 69.24 equal to, anybody, what is this number? I don't know. 30.76. Very good. I was aware, but I wanted to see whether you are awake or not. And then what you do, this 30.76 you amortize over next 6 years. And to help you, what I have done, I have written the expected cash flow of the next 6 years. And then see my kind-heartedness, I have written the calculation also for you in this ratio. So first you take the total of this 6 number, it will come to 500. 100 by 500 into 30.76. Now you have to give me this answer. Haji, 6.15, 6.152. And just do one more calculation. 75 by 500 into 30.76. How much? 4.614. Check the total. Is it matching with 30.76? Yes. So this was about amortization. Other principles of IAS 16 will apply. Now the last few paragraphs are pending. Derecognition. The IAS should be derecognized if either it is disposed of, means generally sold, okay, or sold or leased, okay, under finance lease. Then also it can be derecognized. Remove from the book. Sale, finance lease, or no future economic benefits are expected to flow to the enterprise. So your software has become, say for example, redundant now, that we don't use anymore, and you can't sell it also. So what will you do? De-recognize, write it off. It has been retired from active use. So de-recognize. What about the gain or loss on de-recognition? Gain or loss on de-recognition will be determined as follows. Compare the net disposal proceed with the carrying amount. Okay? Net disposal proceed versus carrying amount. If the net disposal proceed is greater than carrying amount, it is profit. The same will be recognized in profit and loss unless IFRS 16 requires otherwise on a sale and lease back. That will be discussed in IFRS 16. Gains shall not be classified as revenue. Revenue is different. Now come to one question below. And as you know, in case if it is a revalued asset, after the disposal or de-recognition, the balance in revaluation surplus will be transferred to retained earning. Is it right? With respect to revaluation, everything mentioned in IAS 16 will apply. So we are not discussing it again. Question number 14. In the past year, ASF Limited had spent and carried forward in the books a total of rupees 5 lakh on developing a cure for cancer. During the current year, it is decided to terminate this product as the test results in the current year have proved adverse. Comment on the accounting treatment. So what will you do now? Will it generate any future economic benefit? So we'll de-recognize it. And if you de-recognize, it will be a loss. The loss will be recognized in statement of profit and loss. So the answer will be, this is how you will present the answer in detail. If they ask you some theory question, there is an intangible asset appearing in the balance sheet on account of development expenditure. Development expenditure can be recognized as an asset subject to certain conditions. Year-end review. As per IAS 38, amortization period and method should be reviewed at least at the end of each accounting period. This is at least. More than once is also possible in a year. If the expected useful life is significantly different from the previous estimate, amortization period should be changed accordingly. In this case, since the company has decided in the current year to terminate the product because of adverse test result, deferral of the cost incurred on it cannot be justified. Hence, the entire unamortized expenditure should be expensed off in the current year and charged to SOPL. What about intangible asset classified as held for sale? Point number 1, apply IFRS 5. And point number 2, do not amortize it further. Oh, this wonderful standard is over because disclosure paragraph has come. So disclosure paragraph I have simplified. Actually is much longer than this. In the financial statement, you are going to disclose gross carrying amount, accumulated depreciation or amortization in this case, and impairment loss at the beginning and at the end of the year. In the notes, accounting policy, useful life, and amortization rate and method. Then you have to give a reconciliation of the carrying amount at the beginning and at the end of the year. Amount of commitment for acquisition of intangible asset to be shown as a part of contingent liability. Differentiate between internally generated and other intangible asset. So you have to bifurcate in the statement of financial position, internally generated intangible asset and other. And then again you have to bifurcate between intangible asset with indefinite useful life. carrying amount and reasons supporting the assessment of indefinite life. These are the main disclosures. But suppose there is an intangible asset which is measured after using the revaluation model. Like IAS 16, if you use revaluation model, the disclosure requirements are very stringent. Intangible assets are accounted for at revalued amount, entity will disclose the following. By class of intangible asset, for each class you will disclose the effective date of the revaluation, the carried amount of revalued intangible asset, and the carrying amount that would have been recognized had the revalued class of intangible asset been measured after recognition using the cost model. So what would be the carrying amount had you followed the cost model? And the amount of revaluation surplus that relates to intangible asset at the beginning and at the end of the period, indicating the change during the period and any restriction on the distribution of the balance to the shareholder. In most of the countries, revaluation surplus cannot be distributed as dividend till the asset is disposed of. So that restriction you have to disclose. In India, SEBI guideline prohibits the use of revaluation reserve for either dividend payment or issue of bonus shares. You can't use that. Next is disclosure about research and development expenditure. An entity shall disclose the aggregate amount of R&D expenditure recognized as an expense during the period. So here we will say the standard is over. One more paragraph, number 30, because you have to also compare Ind AS vis-a-vis IAS. There are no major differences between the two standards. The only difference is if an intangible asset is acquired by way of government grant. So what is the difference here? Ind AS 38 only allows you fair value model. IAS 38 allows you two model, fair value model, or you can record it at nominal amount plus any expenditure that is directly attributable to prepare the asset for its intended use. Okay. This standard is over. Thank you.